Woodruff is here, politics reporter for the Daily Beast, Tara Palmeri, CNN political analyst, and Matt Lewis, CNN political commentator. So nice to have you all here. And Betsy, let's begin with you. Just on the president, and as John said, this is a robust response from the White House to Irma, to say the least.
Right, and this is something that we know has been a top priority for the White House in the past few weeks, is getting this response right. Our understanding is that the president's been very vocal to folks in his inner circle about how much he cares about making sure that the response from the White House and from the Department of Homeland Security, particularly FEMA, is the correct response and that people know it. Remember, the president's incredibly sensitive to TV coverage. He's incredibly sensitive to news. And, of course, as the president, this has its potential to be one of the defining catastrophes of his first year in office. He understands it's a big, key moment for him, and I think that's why we're seeing such a hands-on approach, not just the president and vice president, but also close aides. I believe Melania, his wife, is also traveling down with him today. Just a key part of having a on-the-ground, hands-on presence from the White House.
He did not want the optics of former President George W. Bush surveying the damage in the plane, right? He wanted to be on the ground after Harvey. He's on the ground now. Sounds like more trips are ahead. Matt, to you, changing topics here to DACA, the big headline this morning, and the deal-making potential with Democrats that this president is displaying. It's pretty extraordinary. We have reporting from our Jeff Zeleny, Phil Mattingly, Jim Acosta, that right now the president is so dedicated to getting DACA legislation through, he believes that it takes priority over it, trumps his border wall, which was sort of promise number one on the campaign trail. How is it that the Republican Party controls Congress, but it seems to only be the Democrats and Democratic leadership that can get things done with this president?
Well, I mean, it obviously would be ironic if, after all the talk about, Mexicans, being rapists and all this, stuff that got him elected, and the first, the immigration ban and all that, and if his, big piece of his big accomplishment is DACA, and raising the debt ceiling, if those are the big things he does the first year, it would be ironic. But look, it's popular, even among Donald Trump supporters. Doing something to protect these dreamers is popular. And I would also say I think there's a hunger out there for somebody to get something done. We've had a decade where there was no big bipartisan deals being cut. I mean, President Obama basically pushed through the Democrat agenda. Republicans tried to obstruct that. I think there's a hunger amongst Republicans and the general public for someone who just to do something. So this is Donald Trump, being Donald Trump, being popular. And look, this Ted Cruz, if you are a conservative, immigration restrictionist, Ted Cruz warned you about this. He said he's going to be cutting deals with Chuck Schumer. This is who he is.
True. Someone who's really unhappy this morning, Tara, is conservative Congressman Steve King of Iowa. Really unhappy and making it very clear across Twitter. He's saying this is going to blow up your base, Mr. President. He is saying, he's naming all the times that amnesty was pushed by Republicans and Democrats and failed, and he's calling this amnesty from the president right now. The headline on Breitbart is Amnesty Dawn. This is a president who won because of his base, because of their enthusiasm. He didn't win because he had a majority of the popular vote. Is this very risky politically for him, despite the fact that on DACA, he does have many members of his base supporting Congress getting something done, but they also want a wall?
Poppy, you have to remember that a lot of these conservatives have still been stewing since last week when the debt ceiling deal was made with the Democrats. And they have since then been organizing and deciding what are they going to get for that deal. They're very unhappy with it. And I was told from a former White House official that they are on the march and organizing. And this is something that I was told from a senior administration official. They're very concerned inside of the White House, the kind of retribution they're going to get from the conservatives with the deal that they made on the debt ceiling. Now, you're piling on DACA on top of all of that, and you've got a really steamy group of conservative lawmakers who are ready to fire back or at least get something in exchange for these deals with the Democrats. Now, President Trump is loving the popularity that he's getting for doing the deals with the Democrats. In the media, he's talking to his aides saying, I stuck it to Mitch and Paul Ryan, who he feels have not been loyal enough to him and who have not helped him enough to get his legislative agenda forward. He's had a lot of contempt for them lately, according to many aides that I've spoken to. That's how he speaks privately about them. So it's, you know, he's really learning the waters of Washington, and he may be walking into a few landmines.
But, Matt, isn't it a risk for Republicans to get sort of too up in arms about the president showing some bipartisanship here and reaching across the aisle? Because every single one of them comes on CNN and says, we need more bipartisanship in this country. This is what the American people want. There's a fine line to walk here, is there not?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, look, this, in fairness, this does go against everything Donald Trump said he was going to do. It's not coherent, it's not consistent. But if you put that aside, the devil's in the details. If he actually gets some good, not a border wall, but if he gets something that will, deter illegal immigration, most people, I think, want to help these dreamers, these good Americans. These are folks that we ought to want as Americans, right? And even Donald Trump supporters see that. And look, I think that the Steve Kings and the Ann Coulters, they're a minority. I don't know what the base means, but I'll tell you, my Uncle Paul in Maryland, who voted for Donald Trump, will say, hey, at least this guy's getting something done. My mom, who voted for Trump in Pennsylvania and drove people to the polls, is going to say, hey, they're in for Donald Trump. The old expression, only Nixon can go to China. Maybe only Donald Trump can do DACA. People know that he cares about the border. So I think they're going to give him much more leeway. If Paul Ryan or Marco Rubio tried to do this, tried to cut a deal with Chuck Schumer to help the Dreamers, they would be destroyed. Trump gets away with it.
It seems like the chocolate pie or chocolate cake or whatever seems to help every time.
Doesn't hurt.
Thank you, Betsy, Tara, Matt. Nice.